Hello, welcome to our video. This week I'm drinking Oats on Oats on Oats by Siren Craft Brew. Siren have their brewery and tap room located just off the M4 near Reading, and handily there's another brewery just next door. It's Andy Parker's Elusive Brew. So this makes for a great afternoon out. You can have a few beers from each brewery and probably take a few beers home with you as well. This beer is an 8% double IPA brewed with Nelson Sauvin, Motueka. These two hops are from New Zealand, Citra from the US, plus Mandarina Bavaria and Hallertau Blanc. Now these last two are from the traditional hop growing area in Bavaria. Now when I first looked at the hop selection for this beer, I understood the Motueka, Nelson and Citra. These are the hugely fruity, smack in the face like dominant hops. These are the flavours that you would expect. However, the German hops somewhat less so. Well, luckily we do have somewhat of a relationship with Siren, so we were able to get a bit more of an insight into how the hops were used and why. Both the German hops, each pretty unique in their own way, are used to add layers of flavour. It builds on the more punchy, the more hop forward flavours. The orange that the Mandarina Bavaria brings is really present in the lingering sort of on your tongue flavour. It was used both early in the boil and indeed in the whirlpool, and interestingly, and this is the first time that I've heard this, they whirlpool at 87°C. Now the thinking behind this is that it produces a more dominant fruit flavour, whereas whirlpooling at a lower, more accepted temperature, say 75°C, promotes the grassy intensity that's called for in some styles but not in this one. This higher temperature whirlpool is something that we will definitely try here, and I would be really interested to hear in your thoughts, and perhaps you may have done it. Let's have a look at the malt bill. Golden Promise, 44%. Now this is a recurring theme. We're seeing more and more breweries choose Golden Promise only over any other pale malt, especially for this DIPA style. Malted oats, these are at 37%. Flaked oats at 13% and chip malt at 4%. Obviously with the name Oats on Oats on Oats, we were expecting a fair dose of oats within the grist, but 50% oats was somewhat surprising. So what are they adding to this beer? The style is as much about mouthfeel as flavour. It has to have texture, be viscous. The protein contained in the oats helps create this rocky lasting head, and they add slickness, almost oily sensation that makes this beer so soft on the palate. Remember, this beer is an 8% beer. There's very little alcohol showing here. It's a really easy drinking beer. Flaked oats are made by steaming the oats. This cooks them. They've been passed between rollers. This flattens them. The cooking part is important as it makes them much easier to mash. The starches have become soluble. Oat malt is different in that it's malted in the same way as barley and has the husk intact. When we mill it, and by the way it needs milling on a much finer setting than barley, it releases the oat, which is actually quite powdery, and leaves the husk more or less intact. The breakdown of flaked oats and malted oats is interesting. I would think that the percentage of flaked oats is lower as they can cause issues with runoff. The malted oats contain husk, which greatly aids wort separation. The chip malt provides the dextrins. This is also about building the body within the beer. It leaves residual sweetness. Although by no means a sweet beer, it balances the massive hop hit. It also helps the starch conversion in the high percentage of oats within the grist. So one beer, one email to the brewer, asking a few questions, and a huge amount learned. If you take just one thing away from viewing this video, please make it be this: ask questions and keep learning. The brewing world is constantly evolving, not just with new ingredients and new equipment, but with methods, and it seems to be industry standard to share information. Let us all make the most of it, so as brewers we can make the best beer possible. Cheers, see you next week.